These are the most expensive, ridiculous, and completely useless celebrity cooking spaces ever caught on camera. We are looking at $30,000 flat sinks that cannot hold water, fake bowls of citrus meant to fool magazines, and A-list stars who cannot slice a basic vegetable. Money buys massive mansions with imported marble counters, but it rarely buys common sense. Today, we examine what happens when extreme wealth meets interior design, leaving function entirely out of the equation. You will see exactly why a perfect Instagram photo often hides a completely broken reality.
Wealthy public figures
Stopped using their cooking spaces for food years ago. The modern celebrity kitchen operates as a broadcast studio rather than a place to prepare meals. Look closely at the architectural digest tours filling your feed since 2020. Viewers spot untouched, pristine marble, heavy copper pots hanging miles out of reach, and zero actual cooking supplies. Design teams build these spaces entirely for the camera lens, prioritizing clear sight lines and expensive materials over a working stove. This aesthetic choice results in a room that looks stunning in photographs, but fails completely when someone actually wants to boil water. A family needing breakfast would starve in these sterile environments. Real cooking happens behind closed doors in hidden secondary rooms where the actual paid staff works, while the main room just sits there collecting dust.
May 2019
Brought us the most confusing plumbing choice in architectural history. Kim Kardashian opened her California mansion to Vogue cameras, showing off a property she called a minimalist monastery. Viewers immediately fixated on the bathroom and kitchen counters. The surfaces featured completely flat stone, with zero bowls to catch the water from the faucets above. Millions of confused fans swarmed the comment sections, convinced that turning on the tap would flood the expensive hardwood floors instantly. People drew diagrams trying to figure out how anyone washed their hands or rinsed a plate. The intense public mocking forced Kardashian to pull out her phone and shoot a completely new video. She marched right up to the bizarre slabs of rock and turned the water on full blast, showing a flat design that terrified every normal homeowner watching.
Her explanation video
Revealed a hidden trick where that flat stone actually featured a nearly invisible slope, pushing water toward a tiny, rectangular slit. Kardashian proudly noted that her designers built 8 separate test versions before getting the angle exactly right. Construction costs for this single feature reached $30,000. Dropping that much cash on a sink does not make it practical for daily life, because trying to scrub dried food off a plate when your sink has no walls sends splatter everywhere. The tiny drain slit easily clogs with the smallest piece of debris, turning a simple dinner cleanup into a complicated engineering problem. The aesthetic won the battle while making basic human tasks wildly difficult. They built a museum piece and completely forgot that a family actually lived there.
If you are enjoying this look at ridiculous celebrity spending,
hit subscribe and ring the notification bell. We expose wild stories like this every week, and now we will examine a completely fake kitchen setup.
March 2020
introduced everyone to a deeply calming, moss green cooking space. Dakota Johnson walked the Architectural Digest camera crew through her home, stopping in a kitchen that looked both cozy and perfectly styled. She gestured warmly toward a massive bowl piled high with bright green citrus, professing her deep and intense love for limes directly into the lens. She claimed she kept bowls of them everywhere inside the house, and fans obsessed over the aesthetic. Pinterest boards exploded with screenshots of her green cabinets paired with that vibrant fruit bowl. The video racked up millions of views, establishing her as a relatable star with quirky and healthy habits. Everyone bought the story completely, suspecting nothing about the massive lie hidden by the citrus display. The setup looked too natural to question, prompting home bloggers to spend months copying the exact paint color and buying wooden bowls. The truth stayed buried until January 2021, when Johnson sat down for an interview on The Tonight Show and Jimmy Fallon brought up her famous love for limes. She dropped the act entirely and admitted the whole story was completely fake. A set dresser placed those limes in her house right before the magazine crew arrived, simply to add a pop of color to the room. Johnson actually suffers from a mild allergy to the fruit, and eating one makes her tongue swell and itch. The actress just played along with the prop during the tour because she did not know what else to do. This single confession shattered the illusion of the authentic celebrity home tour, proving these spaces function exactly like movie sets dressed with fake props to sell a specific lifestyle. May 2022 gave reality television its most painfully awkward cooking moment in history. The Kardashians aired an episode featuring Kendall Jenner hanging out in her mother's massive and pristine kitchen. Kris Jenner owns a cooking space larger than most starter homes, featuring imported stone and commercial-grade appliances. Kendall decided she wanted a light snack and grabbed a single cucumber from the massive industrial refrigerator. She refused her mother's offer to have the private chef make something, feeling that doing it herself seemed like a good idea at the time. The cameras kept rolling as she picked up a large chef's knife, capturing footage that completely broke the internet. Viewers watched a grown adult fail to understand the basic mechanics of slicing a vegetable. Preparing a simple snack suddenly looked like a dangerous high-wire act, while those shiny and expensive appliances sat silently in the background. Kendall did not just hold the knife poorly. She crossed her left arm entirely over her right hand, gripping the very end of the cucumber while trying to slice awkwardly toward her own fingers. The physical mechanics looked incredibly dangerous, and Jenner even paused mid-slice to ask her mother if cucumbers contained seeds. Kris watched in sheer terror, clearly afraid her daughter would chop off a finger on national television. Panic set in immediately as the matriarch shouted for their paid chef to step in and rescue the situation. Online audiences roasted Kendall ruthlessly for weeks, producing millions of mocking videos recreating the unnatural crossed-arm chopping method. This disaster highlighted a hilarious reality about owning a $100,000 kitchen. It means absolutely nothing if you lack the basic skills to use a cutting board. Khloe Kardashian took the impractical kitchen trend in a completely different direction by popularizing the hyper-organized pantry. Function goes entirely out the window here in favor of visual perfection. Visitors to her home find massive and heavy glass jars lining the counters, filled with hundreds of cookies stacked in perfect and dizzying geometric circles. The famous Oreo jars require someone to manually place every single cookie by hand, using tweezers to get the circle perfectly tight. This setup creates a massive problem for anyone who actually wants to eat a snack, because pulling one treat from the bottom ruins the structural integrity of the stack and collapses the whole tower instantly. Those cookies exist purely as expensive and sugary wallpaper. Staff members must completely rebuild the jars every single month, simply because the food goes completely stale, since nobody ever opens the heavy glass lids.
Drake decided his Toronto mansion
Needed a cooking space that looked like a high-security bank. He hired designer Ferris Raffauli to build a dark and moody room dominated by a custom stove that defies logic. The massive black and gold range cost $400,000 and looks heavy enough to sink through the floor. Those shiny knobs gleam in solid brass, and the entire unit requires special reinforced flooring just to support its massive weight. Nobody is actually turning those heavy dials because the rapper spends most of his year touring the globe or eating at exclusive restaurants. This colossal stove sits frozen in the dark, acting as a massive metal sculpture rather than a tool for boiling water. It represents the ultimate kitchen flex of buying commercial restaurant gear simply to look at it. Brooklyn Beckham launched a massive cooking series on social media in 2023, filming inside an incredibly expensive and perfectly lit kitchen. Viewers immediately noticed the huge mismatch between the professional-grade room and the actual food being produced. He stood in front of dual 6-burner commercial stoves and massive prep islands, only to assemble basic cold sandwiches. The internet quickly uncovered that this pristine cooking space was not even his actual home, but rather a rented studio space costing upwards of $100,000 per shoot. Slicing basic cheddar cheese in a room designed for catering operations felt completely absurd, as his environment completely swallowed the actual content. Professional chefs watched in absolute confusion as he boiled a single pot of pasta on a stove meant to feed 50 people simultaneously. That massive kitchen simply acted as an expensive costume. We cannot discuss useless celebrity cooking spaces without looking back at the original offender. Mariah Carey gave MTV Cribs a tour of her New York penthouse back in the early 2000s, famously walking into her kitchen wearing stilettos and a ball gown. The room featured commercial-grade appliances and massive amounts of space. When producers asked her to show them what she kept in the refrigerator, the illusion broke instantly, because Carey could barely figure out how to open the massive metal door. Inside, the huge commercial fridge sat almost completely empty, except for a few bottles of water and some old takeout boxes. The singer openly admitted she never touched the appliances, keeping those massive ovens and imported stovetops purely for decoration. She set the blueprint for every useless celebrity kitchen that followed, while the camera crew captured the pure awkwardness. One shocking secret of the celebrity kitchen design world is the two-room system. Real estate agents in Los Angeles report that almost all new massive mansions now require a secondary cooking space called the prep kitchen or the messy kitchen. This small and ugly room hides entirely behind closed doors, containing the actual working fridge, the noisy dishwasher, and the scratched-up cutting boards. A hired chef does all the actual chopping, frying, and baking back there completely out of sight. The beautiful room we see on Instagram acts simply as a stage, where the star walks out, grabs the plated food prepared in the hidden room, and poses at the pristine marble island. Those massive ovens in the show kitchen often sit completely unplugged to save electricity, and hanging copper pots above the island have never touched an open flame. We keep watching these tours because they offer a hilarious reality check. Wealth allows people to build spaces completely disconnected from human needs. A normal person looks at a kitchen and figures out how to make dinner efficiently, while famous actors look at the exact same room and try to figure out how it will look in a magazine's spread. They sacrifice basic logic for visual perfection, resulting in flat sinks that flood floors and glass jars full of stale cookies. These spaces remind us that having endless money does not make your life easier, sometimes just giving you the budget to build an incredibly expensive and highly inconvenient trap. Every time a star shows off their perfectly fake fruit bowl, they accidentally reveal how detached they are from normal life. They bought a beautiful museum exhibit and entirely forgot that a house is supposed to be lived in. From Kendall's terrifying knife skills to Dakota's fictional fruit allergies, these cooking spaces prove that aesthetic perfection completely destroys basic functionality. The rich and famous spend millions to build beautiful rooms that actively prevent them from making a simple sandwich, hiding the real cooking in secret back rooms while posing in front of useless flat sinks. If you enjoyed this breakdown of ridiculous celebrity spending, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. I will see you in the next video with even more bizarre stories from the internet.